I don't know anything about myself or my family or what's made me who I am today. I can't go back any further than my grandparents. I'm a Cockney, I come from the East End of London, but I was always denied the East End because my mother, God bless her, thought it was the best thing. She was a bit of a snob because she thought, as far as she was concerned, it was very working class, and she'd done everything to better herself and get away from that. And she wanted everyone to think I came from North London. So I want to know, are my ancestors, are they from the East End? Is it, I'd love that to be East End through and through, or do I come from anywhere else? Right, we want 2 coffees, 1 cup
Actress Barbara Windsor, MBE, lives in central London with her husband, Scott.
What are you going to do today after we've done this? Because you know I've got to go off and find out about my life. I'm really nervous. I'm terribly nervous.
I think it'll be exciting.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
I've got these feelings, these butterflies in my stomach. See, if I could come in now and go, da, 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 and know it all, then it would be fine.
It's like, what are you nervous of finding out? It's a bit like that. I mean, there's something I'd like to find out, whether there's any of your ancestors that keep losing their keys. I mean, that would be a very kind of good thing for me to know.
I am aggravating, aren't I? My mother and father, that's Rose Alexandra Ellis, and my father, John Henry James Deeks. They were an incredible-looking couple. They were fantastic. It was funny because they were totally different. My father was a barrow boy, and my mother was a dressmaker, but she always said couture, because my mother, bless her, always wanted to better herself, which I appreciate now. When I got older at the time, I say, why, what for? And my father always wanted to stay in the East End, and that made the marriage, quite hairy.
Barbara was born Barbara Ann Deeks in 1937 in the East End of London. Much to her mother's irritation, she inherited the cheeky looks and clever patter of her father, John.
I mean, look at the forehead, exactly the same, and the same little blonde hair, Same smile, that big smile. I felt very much a daddy's girl. I never felt a mummy's girl, ever, ever, ever. While Daddy was away at war, Mummy moved us out the East End to North London, and I suppose she saw it as a move up the social ladder. But when Daddy came home, he wasn't happy at all there. There'd always been, rifts had always been there, and I was always aware of rows and arguments. Gradually the marriage fell apart, and then Daddy, he started to get a bit violent with Mummy. And then at the age of 14, I was called to testify at the divorce hearing. And I came out, and Mummy said, well, they've awarded you to me, darling. She said, Daddy's going to give me 5 shillings a week. And I said, well, what's going to happen with Daddy? Will I see him? And she said, yes, I'll make sure he takes you to the cinema like you like every week and all the rest of it. And with that, Daddy walked down. I always remember he had this terrible yellow sweater on, which I was amazed because he was always so smart. He walked with his yellow sweater. His face was bright red, and I thought, he's going to just hit everybody, because I've seen him like that. And he just walked past me and looked at me, and Mummy, he almost spat at us and just walked away. And it was, I didn't understand it at all.
After Barbara's father left, the dominant male figure in her life was her maternal grandfather, Charlie Ellis. Charlie was a dock worker by day and an amateur singer by night.
He used to let himself down, my granddad, because he did used to like a bit of a tipple. And when he worked at the docks, you see, he used to drink. When he finished, he'd finish early and have the little few before he came home. And my mother used to say, because I went to school, that's where I went to school there, you see. And Granddad used to get off the bus and he used to walk up here, you see. And my mum used to say, if you see your Granddad, ignore him. He is not your Granddad. Well, of course, I loved him. I loved that, you see. And I knew that if I saw my Granddad, I could get tuppence for a jam donut, you see. And the baker's was just there. So I would go out my way and hope and pray he'd had a few, and and he used to come, always be singing, always up the street, singing down the street. But everyone knew Charlie Ellis. Now going back to the docks to find out more about my granddad, Charlie Ellis. I know in the latter part of his life he was a tea boy. I mean, and that's in his late 70s into 80s at the docks. You know, when you say a tea boy at the docks, but they all loved Charlie. I think they did. They wanted him around because he just, as I say, the people just adored him. And I just want to find out more about him. And also, it's interesting to see. I mean, I have been here before, but see how much it's changed. Parts of it is lovely. I mean, it's like being in Manhattan, but there's a lack of community. You know, I just feel that they've pushed out the true East Enders. Oh, well, I know they have. But that's progress. And my granddad was very much of today. I mean, he used to keep up to fashion and with all the music. So he wouldn't have said, "Oh, let's stay in this way we are now." So I think he would have liked it. I think he would have dined out on this. Well, I'm going Canary Wharf. He said, it's all poshed up now. He would have liked that, yes.
Did you know that this is the vaults down here is where your granddad worked, where Charlie worked down here?
I didn't.
He worked for in the vaults. He worked for the wine department, of course, at the Port London Authority.
He would. That's why I used to get off the bus.
He spent 26 years of his life in areas like this,
God,
you know, looking after wines, port, sherries, brandies. Later on down in this vault, they stored rum up from the mid-1930s.
Of course.
So there were lots of possible temptations. Occasionally, some of the men sort of helped themselves, and that was called sucking the monkey. They drilled a little hole into the side of the barrels, put a little pipe in, had filled up a mug or something, shouldn't do it at all, and then plugged up the hole, you know?
In latter years, he's late, just not long before he died, they kept him on as a tea boy because they were so very fond of him.
Yeah, that's right, because I think he retired when he was 65, which is for many people still quite a young person.
That was to him, yes.
His pension wouldn't have been enormous, and it would have been nice for him to have topped that up. And also, I think people like the joviality of the guys who they worked with. These were small communities who worked down here. I mean, the total number of labourers in the wine department was about 70. Something here I think you'll find of interest, Barbara. It's the staff employment card from the Port London Authority, which is in the museum in Docklands Archive now, relating to your grandfather, Charlie Ellis. And you can see it tracks everything from his birth on the 15th of November 1877 through to his retirement on the 19th of November 1942. And he starts work in 1916 as an extra labourer. When he was born, 1877, extra labourers were the lowest of the low in terms of port workers, because they were really casual. So, and above those you had preference labourers, above those you had permanent labourers. But you can see with Charlie's case, within 3 years, he's become a B labourer. That's a preferable labourer. So he's got far more chance of finding regular work working for the PLA. So he's moving up a sort of social hierarchy.
Oh, my mum would be pleased.
Really good, And then, within sort of 2 years, he's become a permanent labourer, Really good.